My name is Sophie Brennan. I am 32 years old. For 9 years, I lived in a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, and raised 3 children who were not mine. I fed them. I bathed them. I drove them to school. I held them with homework. I held them when they cried. I showed up to every school play, every soccer game, every parent-teacher conference that their actual parents were too busy or too important to attend. The Harrington family promised me a college fund. They promised me a Christmas bonus every year. They promised me that when the children were grown, they would write me the kind of recommendation letter that would open every door in the world. They gave me nothing. Not $1 beyond my base salary. Not a thank you. Not a single promise kept. And when I finally asked for what I was owed, they did not just fire me. They destroyed me. They told everyone in Greenwich that I had stolen jewelry from Diana Harrington's bedroom. An emerald bracelet worth $22,000. They called the other families in their circle. They called the school. They called agencies. They buried my name so completely that within a month, I could not get hired to babysit a goldfish in the entire state of Connecticut. I left Greenwich with 2 suitcases, an empty bank account, and a reputation so thoroughly shattered that I had to move 3 states away to start over. For 7 years, I rebuilt my life from the ashes of theirs. I worked nights at a diner to pay for community college. I transferred to a state university. I earned a master's degree in child psychology. I opened my own practice in Manhattan. Small, modest, mine. Then 3 months ago, a young woman walked into my office. She did not have an appointment. She stood in the doorway with her hands shaking and said 5 words that stopped my heart. "You were my nanny, Sophie." It was Emma Harrington, the youngest child. The one I had rocked to sleep every night for 6 years. The one who used to call me Mama Sophie before her mother told her to stop. She was 19 now, a freshman at Columbia University, and she had come to tell me something her parents had spent 7 years trying to bury. The jewelry was never stolen. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Mom hid it herself. "She set you up, Sophie. I found the bracelet last summer, in Mom's safe deposit box. And that is not even the worst part. What she told me next did not just clear my name. It exposed a pattern of fraud, cruelty, and deception so systematic that when it came out in front of 300 guests at the Harrington Foundation annual gala, the family that had tried to erase me could not hide behind their money anymore. But I need to start at the beginning. Because the story of how I became Sophie the nanny, and then Sophie the thief, and then Sophie the psychologist who stood on that stage and told the truth, is not a story about revenge. It is a story about what happens when the people you love the most treat you like you are disposable. Greenwich, Connecticut, one of the wealthiest towns in America. Average household income, $312,000 a year. The kind of place where the lawns are manicured by professional landscaping companies, the cars in every driveway cost more than most people's houses, and the families who live there carry their last names like crowns. The Harringtons were Greenwich royalty. Charles Harrington was the managing partner of Harrington Capital, a private equity firm in Manhattan that managed over $2 billion in assets. Diana Harrington was the chair of the Greenwich Arts Council, a board member of 3 nonprofits, and the kind of woman who could silence a room by walking into it. They lived in a 12,000-square-foot colonial on a 3-acre lot on Round Hill Road. 7 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a pool house, a tennis court, a wine cellar that Charles had stocked with bottles that cost more than my monthly salary. They had 3 children, Olivia, born in 2002, James, born in 2004, Emma, born in 2005. And they had absolutely no interest in raising any of them. 28 miles and an entire universe away from Greenwich. My mother, Rosalind Brennan, was a home health aide who worked 12-hour shifts caring for elderly patients. My father left when I was 4. I have no memory of him. Just a name on a birth certificate and a gap where a parent should have been. My mother raised me alone in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on State Street. She worked days and sometimes nights. When she worked nights, Mrs. Delgado from downstairs would check on me, leave a plate of rice and beans on the kitchen counter, and make sure I locked the door. I learned to be self-sufficient before I learned to ride a bike. I cooked my first meal at 7. Scrambled eggs. I burned them. I ate them anyway. By 10, I was doing my own laundry, packing my own lunch, walking myself to school. Not because my mother did not care. She cared more than anyone I have ever known. But she was one person doing the work of 2, and there were only so many hours in a day. When I was 16, my mother was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. The disease attacked her hands first, the same hands that bathed elderly patients, that braided my hair on Sunday mornings, that held mine when I was scared. Within 2 years, she could barely grip a doorknob. She had to stop working. Disability payments covered rent. Barely. Everything else was a calculation. I graduated from Bassick High School in 2014 with a 3.4 GPA and a desperate need for money. College was a dream I could not afford. My mother needed care. Bills needed paying. I needed a job that paid more than minimum wage and did not require a degree I did not have. A guidance counselor at school mentioned that families in Greenwich were always looking for nannies. Good families, she said. They pay well. Room and board included. You would save on rent. She helped me create a profile on an agency website. Within a week, I had 3 interviews. The first 2 families were polite but chose someone else. The third family was the Harringtons. Diana Harrington interviewed me in the sunroom of their Round Hill Road mansion on a Tuesday afternoon in June 2015. I was 19 years old. I wore the only nice outfit I owned, a black blouse and gray pants my mother had bought me from the clearance rack at Marshall's. Diana was 41 then, thin, precise, every hair in place. She wore a cream cashmere sweater and pearl earrings, and spoke with the practiced warmth of someone who had learned to seem approachable, without actually being approachable. Tell me about yourself, Sophie. I told her about my mother, about growing up in Bridgeport, about being responsible and organized and good with children, because I had essentially been one raising myself. She nodded through all of it. I could tell she was not really listening. She was evaluating, calculating, deciding whether I was presentable enough, obedient enough, desperate enough. The position is live-in. 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, Sundays off unless we need you for an event. Salary, $32,000 a year, plus room and board. That was more money than I had ever imagined earning. Room and board meant I could send most of my salary home to my mother. There are also performance incentives. Diana smiled. After 2 years, we will establish a college fund for you. After 5 years, we will provide a vehicle, and every December you will receive a year-end bonus based on performance. A call. A bonus. It sounded like a dream. When can I start? I moved into the Harrington guest suite on July 1, 2015. A room larger than the entire apartment I had shared with my mother. King-size bed, private bathroom, a window overlooking the pool. It felt like a movie. It was a movie. And I was playing a part I did not yet understand. The children changed everything. Whatever I thought about the Harringtons, whatever reservations I had about Diana's coolness or Charles's absence, all of it dissolved the first time Olivia looked up at me with those enormous brown eyes and said, "Are you going to stay?" The last nanny left after 3 months. She was 13. She should not have known to ask that question. The fact that she did told me everything about what life in that house had been like before I arrived. James was 11. Quiet. Watchful. He had the cautious demeanor of a child who had learned that the adults around him were unreliable. He tested me for the first 2 weeks. Ignoring instructions. Leaving messes. Watching to see if I would snap or disappear like the ones before me. I did neither. I cleaned up the messes. I repeated the instructions gently. I showed up every morning at the same time with the same steady presence until one afternoon he looked at me and said, "You are not going to leave, are you?" "No," I said. "I am not." And then there was Emma. 10 years old, the baby of the family. Wild curly hair that Diana was always trying to tame. A laugh so loud it filled every room she entered. Emma attached herself to me like a barnacle on the first day and never let go. She called me Mama Sophie. It started as a joke. A silly thing she said one evening when I was tucking her into bed and she was being goofy. But it stuck. She said it every night. "Mama Sophie, can you read one more chapter? Mama Sophie, I love you." Diana heard her say it once. Her face went rigid. A muscle twitched near her jaw. "Emma, I am your mother. Sophie is the help." Emma stopped saying it in front of Diana. She still whispered it to me every night when I turned off her light. My days were structured around the children's lives. 5:45 in the morning. Wake up, prepare breakfast, pack lunches, iron school uniforms. 6:45. Wake the children. Help Emma dress. She was 10, but Diana insisted on specific outfits for each day, and Emma could never remember which shoes went with which dress. 7:15. Drive the children to Greenwich Academy in Diana's spare Range Rover, a vehicle worth more than my mother's apartment. 8 to 3. Clean the children's rooms. Do their laundry. Prepare afternoon snacks. Run errands for Diana. Pick up dry cleaning. Return library books. Buy flowers for whatever dinner party she was hosting that week. 3:15. Pick up the children. Drive to after-school activities. Olivia had violin. James had soccer. Emma had art class. 5:30. Start dinner. Diana had specific dietary requirements for each child. Organic everything. No gluten for James. No dairy for Emma. No sugar after 6 for Olivia. 7. Homework supervision. I sat at the dining table every evening helping with math problems and science projects and book reports, while Charles worked late in Manhattan and Diana attended board meetings or charity functions. 8:30. Bedtime routine. Baths. Pajamas. Stories. Teeth. Lights out. By 9 in the evening, I would finally sit down in my room. Exhausted. Empty. But strangely fulfilled because those 3 children loved me with a ferocity that their parents seemed incapable of. Charles was a ghost. He left for Manhattan before 7 in the morning and returned after 9 at night. On weekends, he played golf or entertained clients or disappeared into his study with a glass of scotch and a closed door. He spoke to the children in headlines. How was school? Good game on Saturday. Your mother says you need new shoes. He spoke to me the same way. Everything okay, Sophie? Good. Great. The children looked fine. Thank you. Thank you. The only 2 words Charles Harrington ever said to me with any consistency. Diana was different. Diana was present in the house, but absent from her children's lives in ways that were harder to see and harder to forgive. She was physically there. She walked through rooms. She appeared at dinners. She attended the occasional school event when there were other mothers to perform for, but she did not parent. She supervised, she managed, she delegated, and the person she delegated everything to was me. The promises started early and evaporated slowly. Year 1. Diana mentioned the college fund during my annual review. A formal meeting she conducted in the sunroom, sitting across from me with a leather portfolio like I was being evaluated for a corporate promotion. You have done excellent work, Sophie. The children are thriving. She smiled. We will begin setting up the college fund next quarter. Next quarter came and went. I asked about it in month 14. Diana waved her hand. We have been busy with the renovation. Charles is handling it soon. Year 2. No college fund. I asked again. Charles said they were restructuring their finances after a bad quarter at the firm. These things take time, Sophie. We have not forgotten. Year 3. The car was supposed to materialize at the 5-year mark, but Diana began mentioning it casually, as though it were just around the corner. We are looking at options for you. Something practical? Something safe. Year 4. Year 5. Year 6. Nothing materialized. No college fund. No car. No Christmas bonus. Not once in 9 years. Every December, I would wait. I would tell myself this is the year. This Christmas morning, there would be an envelope. A check. A card with a number inside that acknowledged 9 years or 8 years or 7 years of my life given to their family. Every December, there was nothing. A gift card to Target. $50 once Diana gave me a scarf she had received as a promotional gift from a department store. The tag was still on it. It was not even my color. My salary remained $32,000 for 9 years. No raises, no adjustments for inflation, no overtime pay despite working 60 to 70 hours a week. $32,000 divided by the approximately 3,200 hours I worked each year came out to $10 an hour. Below minimum wage if anyone had bothered to calculate it. I calculated it. In year 7, at 2 in the morning, sitting on my bed in the room they provided as part of my compensation, but the money was not why I stayed. I stayed for Olivia, who was becoming a young woman and needed someone to talk to about things she could not discuss with Diana. I stayed for James, who had started having panic attacks in 8th grade and needed someone to sit with him in the dark until his breathing slowed. I stayed for Emma, who still whispered Mama Sophie every night, and whose face was the last thing I saw before I fell asleep, because her room was across the hall and she always left her door open a crack. I stayed because leaving meant abandoning 3 children who had already been abandoned by the 2 people who were supposed to love them most. In February 2024, I finally asked. Not hinted, not waited, asked. Diana, I need to discuss my compensation. We were in the kitchen, a Tuesday morning. The children were at school. Diana was scrolling through her phone, barely looking at me. I have been here almost 9 years. I have not received a single raise, bonus, or any of the incentives we discussed when I was hired. The college fund, the car, the annual bonus. None of it has materialized. Diana set down her phone. Her expression shifted into something I had seen before but never directed at me. The look she gave contractors who overcharged. The look she gave waiters who brought the wrong wine. The look that said, "You are beneath me and you have just reminded us both. Sophie, we provide you with a roof over your head, meals, a private room, access to our home. Do you have any idea what that is worth in Greenwich? I also work 60 to 70 hours a week for $32,000 a year. That is below minimum wage. Minimum wage." She almost laughed. "You are not flipping burgers, Sophie. You are living in a $7 million home. Living in it, not owning it. I live in a guest room, and I work every waking hour. That is not a perk. That is a job." Diana's face went cold. "If you are unhappy with the arrangement, you are free to leave. And the children? The children will be fine. They have parents. Parents who have not attended a single parent-teacher conference in 3 years. Parents who do not know their son has panic attacks, or that their daughter cries herself to sleep. I raised those children, Diana. I am asking for what I was promised. Nothing more." Diana stood. Her chair scraped against the Italian marble floor. "I think we are done here. Please have your things packed by Friday." 9 years. Ended in 90 seconds. I did not have my things packed by Friday. I had them packed by Wednesday. 2 suitcases. The same amount I had arrived with. 9 years, and I was leaving with exactly what I came with. But Diana was not done. Firing me was not enough. She needed to make sure I could never work again. The call came on Thursday evening, the night before I was scheduled to leave. I was in my room folding the last of my clothes when my phone rang, a number I did not recognize. "Is this Sophie Brennan?" "Yes, this is Patricia Langley. I run the Langley Agency. We place domestic workers in Greenwich and the surrounding area." "I know who you are. I registered with your agency years ago." "Yes, that is why I am calling." She paused. "Diana Harrington contacted me this afternoon. She told me you stole an emerald bracelet from her jewelry collection, valued at $22,000. The floor dropped out from under me. That is not true. She also said she has not filed a police report, because she does not want to press charges. She said she is handling it privately, but she wanted to make sure the agencies in the area were aware. She is lying. I never stole anything from her. I have never stolen anything from anyone in my life." Another pause. "Sophie, I believe you. I have placed dozens of nannies with families in this area, and I have seen this before. Wealthy families making accusations when workers ask for what they are owed. But I have to tell you, she called 4 agencies, and she called at least 6 families directly, people she socializes with, people who hire through our network. How many people know? By tomorrow, everyone who matters." Patricia was right. Within 72 hours, the accusation had spread through Greenwich's domestic employment network like wildfire. Diana had not just made a phone call. She had conducted a campaign she told the Greenwich Academy Parents Association during a meeting. She mentioned it casually at a charity luncheon. She told the family next door, and the family across the street, and the family at the end of the cul-de-sac. By the following Monday, I had received 3 calls from families I had previously worked for on weekends, each one politely informing me they would no longer be needing my services. One of them, a woman named Claire Dunning, whose twins I had cared for on Saturday evenings for 2 years, at least, had the decency to sound uncomfortable. "Sophie, I am sure it is a misunderstanding, but with the children and our home we just cannot take the risk. The risk, as if I were a criminal. As if 9 years of devoted service counted for nothing against one woman's lie. I could not find work in Greenwich. I could not find work in Stamford or Darien or New Canaan or Westport. Diana's reach extended across the entire Gold Coast of Connecticut. Every agency had been contacted. Every network had been poisoned. I called the children. Olivia, who was 22 by then and living in New York, answered on the first ring. "Sophie, what happened?" "Mom said you left suddenly. She said there was an incident. She told you I stole from her." Silence. Then, I did not believe it. Not for a second. But she paused. James is upset. He does not know what to think. And Emma? What about Emma? Mom told her you were not a good person, that you had been lying to the family. Emma has been crying for 3 days. Something broke inside me then. Not my heart. My heart had been breaking slowly for 9 years. This was something else. Something structural. The belief I had carried my entire life that if you are good, if you work hard, if you love people with everything you have, it will be enough. It was not enough. It was never going to be enough. Not in a world where someone like Diana Harrington could destroy your life with a phone call and a lie. I packed my 2 suitcases. I drove my mother's old Honda Civic, the one with 200,000 miles and a transmission that shuddered every time I shifted into third. And I drove south, away from Greenwich, away from Connecticut, away from the children I loved and the family that had used me and the reputation that no longer existed. I drove to Philadelphia because I did not know anyone there, because no one there knew me, because I needed to become someone else, someone that Diana Harrington had not already destroyed. Philadelphia, March 2024. I arrived with 2 suitcases and $1,400, the last of my savings. 9 years of work, and I had $1,400 to show for it, because $32,000 a year, minus the money I sent to my mother every month, left almost nothing. I found a room in a shared apartment in South Philadelphia, $450 a month. I got a job waiting tables at a diner on Passyunk Avenue. The owner, a Greek man named Nikos, who had immigrated from Athens 30 years ago and trusted people based on their handshake, hired me on the spot. "You look like someone who knows how to work," he said. I know how to work. That was the one thing I was sure of. I worked breakfast and lunch shifts, 5 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. Tips and hourly combined came to about $400 a week. Enough to survive, not enough to build anything. But I was building, not with money, with time, with discipline, with the same stubborn refusal to disappear that had carried me from Bridgeport to Greenwich and now to Philadelphia. I enrolled at Community College of Philadelphia in September 2024. Psychology. I wanted to understand children, not just care for them. Understand them. Understand why some children grow up loved and some grow up managed. Understand why parents like the Harringtons could look at their own children every day and still choose themselves. I transferred to Temple University in 2026. Full scholarship, the admissions committee was impressed by my essay. I wrote about the 9 years, about the children, about what it means to raise someone else's family while your own life falls apart. I graduated in 2028 with a bachelor's in psychology, summa cum laude. I started a master's program the same year, child clinical psychology. I worked at the university's Child Development Center, doing assessments and therapy with children from low-income families. Children who reminded me of myself. Children who reminded me of Olivia and James and Emma. I earned my master's in 2030. I completed my supervised clinical hours at a practice in Manhattan, run by a woman named Dr. Adele Franklin, who would become the most important mentor of my life. "Sophie," she told me during my first week, "you have something most clinicians spend years trying to develop. You know how to make children feel safe. That is not teachable. That is who you are." I got licensed. I opened my own practice in 2031, a small office on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. 2 rooms, a waiting area I decorated with children's artwork, a therapy room with soft lighting, and a shelf of books and toys chosen to make every child who walked in feel like they mattered. Brennan Child Psychology. My name, my practice, my life. Within 2 years, I had a full caseload. Referrals from schools and pediatricians and family courts. Parents who were struggling. Children who were hurting. Families that needed someone to help them see each other clearly. I was 31 years old. I was a licensed child psychologist with my own practice in Manhattan. I had rebuilt everything Diana Harrington had destroyed. Everything except my name. In Greenwich, I was still Sophie the thief, the nanny who stole an emerald bracelet. The cautionary tale mothers told each other over wine. Be careful who you let into your home. I had accepted that, made peace with it, decided that the life I was building now mattered more than the reputation I had lost then. And then on a Monday morning in September 2031, Emma Harrington walked into my office. I almost did not recognize her. The wild, curly-haired 10-year-old I had rocked to sleep was gone. In her place stood a 19-year-old woman with those same curls now tamed into a braid, wearing a Columbia University sweatshirt and carrying a messenger bag over one shoulder. She stood in my doorway. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were filling with tears. She was fighting not to let fall. "You were my nanny, Sophie." The room tilted. 9 years of memories crashed into me like a wave. Bedtime stories, art projects at the kitchen table, the whispered Mama Sophie in the dark. Emma. She started crying. Not the quiet, contained crying of a college student, the deep, body-shaking sobs of a child who had been holding something inside for far too long. I crossed the room and held her, the way I used to when she was 10, and the world was too loud or too scary or too much. "I found the bracelet," she said into my shoulder. "Last summer, in Mom's safe deposit box. The emerald one. The one she said you stole." My arms tightened around her. "It was there the whole time, Sophie. You never took it." She lied. She lied about all of it. "I know," I whispered. "I have always known, but that is not why I am here." Emma pulled back, wiped her eyes, looked at me with an expression I recognized because I had seen it in my own mirror 1,000 times. The expression of someone who has discovered that the people they love are not who they pretended to be. "There is more, Sophie. So much more, and I need your help." What she told me over the next 2 hours changed everything. Before we continue, I want to pause and ask you something. Have you ever given everything to someone who treated you like you were disposable? Have you ever loved someone's children more than their own parents did, only to be thrown away when you were no longer convenient? Tell me in the comments. Because the loneliest kind of betrayal is the one that comes from the people you served with your whole heart. And if you want to see what Emma revealed about her parents, what was in those documents she brought to my office, and what happened when I walked into the Harrington Foundation Gala in front of 300 of their most powerful friends, hit subscribe and keep watching. Because what happened on that stage is something none of them will ever forget. Emma sat in my therapy room for 2 hours that Monday morning. She had brought a messenger bag stuffed with documents. Printouts, screenshots, bank statements, a USB drive. She spread everything across my desk with the focused intensity of someone who had been preparing for this moment for months. "It started last summer," she said. "I was home from Columbia for break. Mom and Dad were at the Hamptons' house for the weekend. I was alone. I went into Dad's study to use the printer, and I found an unlocked filing cabinet." She pulled out a stack of papers. The first page was a payroll summary from a company called Harrington Household LLC. "I did not know this existed," Emma said. "None of us did. Mom and Dad created a separate company to manage their household staff. You, the housekeeper, the gardener, the chef they hired after you left. All of you were technically employees of this LLC." I looked at the document. My name was on the first page. Sophie Brennan, Employee ID 003. Start date July 1st, 2015. End date February 28th, 2024. Annual salary $32,000. Below my salary was a column labeled Employer Contributions. The numbers next to it were zeros. Every year, for 9 years. "No Social Security contributions," Emma said. "No Medicare withholding. No unemployment insurance. No workers' compensation. They paid you as a contractor on paper, but treated you as a full-time employee. And they never filed proper tax documents for your employment. That alone was a federal violation. Misclassification of employees as independent contractors. The IRS did not look kindly on that, especially not when the employer was a private equity managing partner with a team of accountants." But Emma was not finished. She pulled out a second set of documents. Bank statements from a Chase account under the name Harrington Children's Trust. "This is a trust account Dad set up when Olivia was born," Emma explained. "It is supposed to fund our education. Mom and Dad are the trustees. Olivia, James, and I are the beneficiaries." She pointed to a series of withdrawals. 2018, $42,000 withdrawn. Memo line reads, "Educational consulting, 2019, $38,000. Same memo, 2020, $51,000. 2021, $47,000. 2022, $39,000. Total withdrawals over 5 years, $217,000. I looked at Emma. "Educational consulting?" She shook her head. "None of us received any educational consulting. I checked with Olivia and James. They had no idea these withdrawals were happening. She pulled out another page. I traced the payments. Every one of them went to an account belonging to DLH Enterprises. DLH. Diana Louise Harrington. My mother created a shell company, Emma said. She billed her own children's trust fund for services that never existed. She stole $217,000 from her own kids. I sat back in my chair. The woman who had accused me of stealing a $22,000 bracelet had been systematically embezzling from her children's trust fund for 5 years. The irony was so sharp it could have cut glass. There is more, Emma said. She pulled out a manila folder. Inside were photographs, screenshots of text messages between Diana and a woman named Claudia Reeves, the director of the Greenwich Arts Council where Diana served as chair. The texts detailed a scheme. Diana was using her position on the Arts Council to funnel grant money through a nonprofit she controlled into personal accounts. Small amounts, $10,000 here, $15,000 there. Enough to notice if you were looking. No one had been looking, except Emma. I have been tracking this for 3 months, she said. Since I found the filing cabinet, I have bank records, tax filings, trust statements, text messages, and email chains between Mom and Claudia Reeves. She looked at me with those brown eyes I had watched grow from childhood. I also have this. She held up the USB drive. What is on it? A video. From the house security system, dated March 1st, 2024. The day after I was fired. Every major family in town. Every business partner. Every charity board member. Mom is receiving the Community Leadership Award. Emma's jaw set. The same stubborn expression she had worn as a 10-year-old, refusing to go to bed. I want to be there when the truth comes out. And I want you there too. Emma, I need you to understand what this means. Your family, your parents' reputation, your father's firm. Everything changes if this comes out. Everything should change. She did not hesitate. They stole from their own children. They destroyed an innocent woman's life. They have been committing fraud for years. She looked at me. You taught me something when I was little. Do you remember? I shook my head. You told me that telling the truth is hard, but lying is harder. Because lies need other lies to stay alive. And eventually there are so many lies you cannot remember which one is holding up the others. She smiled through her tears. I remembered every word. I looked at this young woman, this fierce, brave, heartbroken girl who had tracked down the nanny her mother had erased, who had spent 3 months building a case with the same meticulous determination her father brought to his boardroom deals. She was not doing this for revenge. She was doing it because she could not carry the weight of her family's lies anymore. I need to think about this, I said. Give me a few days. She nodded. Okay. But Sophie, whatever you decide, I am telling the truth at that gala. With or without you. She left my office at noon. I sat alone for a very long time, staring at the security footage still frozen on my laptop screen. Diana Harrington, 3:17 a.m., emerald bracelet in hand, 7 years. 7 years of rebuilding. 7 years of carrying the word thief on my back like a scar I could not remove. And now the proof that it was all a lie was sitting on a USB drive on my desk. I picked up my phone and made 2 calls. The first was to Sandra Chen, the attorney I had read about in a news article about a financial fraud case. She answered on the second ring. The second call was to Olivia Harrington, the eldest child, the one who had told me on the phone 7 years ago that she did not believe her mother's accusation. Olivia answered immediately. Sophie. Her voice was warm and worried, and exactly the same as I remembered. Emma told me she found you. She told me everything. Then you know what she wants to do. Yes. Olivia paused, and James and I are with her. All 3 of us, whatever happens next, we are with her. 3 children, standing against their own parents. For the nanny who had raised them, I closed my eyes, took a breath. Then let us do this right. October 18th, 2031, the Hyatt Regency in Greenwich. The Harrington Foundation Annual Gala. 300 guests filled the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a string quartet playing Vivaldi in the corner. The room smelled like expensive perfume and champagne, and the particular confidence of people who had never been told no. Diana Harrington stood near the stage in a floor-length emerald gown, the same color as the bracelet she had hidden to frame me. She was radiant, smiling, accepting compliments from women who envied her and men who feared her husband. Charles stood beside her, silver-haired now, Distinguished. The picture of old money success. I arrived at 7:15. Black dress. Simple. Professional. Emma walked beside me. Olivia and James were already inside, seated at a table near the front. Diana did not see me enter. The room was too crowded, too bright, too full of people telling her how wonderful she was. At 8 o'clock, the foundation director took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor a woman whose commitment to this community has been extraordinary. Diana Harrington. Applause. Standing ovation. Diana climbed the stairs to the podium, tears glistening, the performance of a lifetime. She began her speech, gratitude, humility, the importance of giving back. Every word polished, every sentence rehearsed. Then Emma stood up, walked to the stage, took the microphone from her mother's hand. The room went silent. Thank you, Mom. But before you continue, there is something these 300 people need to hear. Emma's voice carried across the ballroom. Steady, clear, unbreakable. 7 years ago, my mother fired our nanny, a woman named Sophie Brennan who raised me and my siblings for 9 years. She accused Sophie of stealing a $22,000 bracelet. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That accusation was a lie. Emma held up her phone. On this screen is security footage from our home dated March 1, 2024. It shows my mother removing the bracelet from her own jewelry case at 3:17 in the morning and mailing it to a safe deposit box. The bracelet was never stolen. My mother hid it herself. Diana lunged for the microphone. Emma stepped back. She also embezzled $217,000 from her own children's trust fund through a shell company called DLH Enterprises. And she has been funneling grant money from the Greenwich Arts Council into personal accounts for years. The ballroom erupted. Diana was frozen. Charles had gone white. 300 faces stared at the stage. I climbed the stairs. Emma handed me the microphone. My name is Sophie Brennan. For 9 years, I raised the Harrington children. I was promised a college fund, a car, and annual bonuses. I received nothing. When I asked for what I was owed, I was fired and accused of theft. I held up the documents Emma had gathered. These are payroll records, showing the Harringtons never paid employment taxes on my wages. These are bank statements showing trust fund embezzlement. And this is security footage proving the theft accusation was fabricated. I looked at Diana. You did not just fire me, you erased me. You made sure I could never work again. You told your 10-year-old daughter that the woman who raised her was a criminal. I spent 7 years rebuilding everything you destroyed. I did it without your money, without your connections, without your name. I handed the microphone back to Emma. I am not here for revenge. I am here because the truth deserves a room big enough to hold it. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours, the security footage had been viewed over 200,000 times online. Someone at the gala had recorded Emma's speech and uploaded it. The Greenwich Time ran the story the next morning. Harrington Foundation chair accused of embezzlement and defamation at own gala. Sandra Chen filed 3 separate legal actions within a week. A defamation lawsuit against Diana Harrington for the false theft accusation. A wage theft claim for 9 years of employment violations. And a referral to the Connecticut Attorney General's office regarding the trust fund embezzlement and Arts Council grant fraud. Diana retained a crisis management firm. Their first recommendation was a public apology. Diana refused. Their second recommendation was a private settlement. Sandra rejected it. We are not settling, Sandra told me. Not until every dollar is accounted for and your name is publicly cleared. The Greenwich Academy Parents Association issued a statement distancing itself from Diana. The Arts Council suspended her pending investigation. The Harrington Foundation Board voted unanimously to remove her as chair. Charles filed for divorce on November 1st. His attorney cited irreconcilable differences. The financial discovery process revealed the full extent of Diana's fraud. The trust fund embezzlement alone exceeded $217,000. The Arts Council diversion added another $93,000. Claudia Reeves, Diana's accomplice, cooperated with investigators immediately. She provided emails, text messages, and bank records in exchange for reduced charges. Patricia Langley, the agency director who had warned me 7 years earlier, called me personally. Sophie, I owe you an apology. I should have done more. I should have questioned Diana's story instead of just passing it along. You warned me. That was more than most people did. The families who had dropped me called too. One by one. Claire Dunning, the Petersons, the Wainwrights, each one apologizing, each one ashamed. I accepted their apologies, not because they deserved absolution, but because carrying resentment was heavier than carrying forgiveness. The settlement came in January 2030. Sandra negotiated for 3 months. The final agreement included full back pay with overtime for 9 years of employment. $211,000. Damages for defamation and emotional distress. $350,000. A public written apology from Diana Harrington, published in the Greenwich Time and distributed to every agency and family she had contacted. Total settlement. $561,000. I read Diana's apology in the newspaper on a Tuesday morning. It was clearly written by her lawyers. Stiff and formal and empty of genuine remorse. But it was there. In print. Permanent. Sophie Brennan did not steal from our family. The accusation was unfounded, and I deeply regret the harm it caused to her reputation and career. 12 lines. After 7 years of silence. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was on the record. 6 months later, I am sitting in my office on the Upper West Side. The same 2 rooms, the same children's artwork on the walls, the same shelf of books and toys chosen to make every child who walks in feel like they matter. But something is different now. I am different. Emma visits every other weekend. She takes the train from Columbia, and we have lunch at a place on Amsterdam Avenue, where the pasta is mediocre but the conversation is not. She is studying psychology now. She says I inspired her. I tell her she inspired herself. Olivia calls weekly. She is 29, working in nonprofit management in Boston. She says she wants to build something that actually helps people, not the performative charity her mother practiced. Real help. For real people. James is the quiet one. He always was. But he texted me last month. Just 2 lines. Thank you for staying as long as you did. And thank you for coming back. I saved that text. I will probably keep it forever. My mother came to visit my office last spring. Rosalind Brennan. 63 years old now. Her hands still ache from the arthritis. She still moves slowly, but she stood in my waiting room and looked at the sign on the door. Brennan Child Psychology. And she cried. You built this, she said, from nothing, after everything they did. You built this. I built it because of you, Mom. Because you showed me what it looks like to keep going when everything says stop. Diana Harrington pleaded guilty to embezzlement charges in April. 2 years probation. Full restitution to the Children's Trust. Community service. A permanent record. She moved to a smaller house in Stamford. I do not know what her life looks like now. I do not need to know. Charles sends me a card every Christmas. Short, polite. Always the same closing line. The children were lucky to have you. I am sorry I did not say that sooner. My practice has grown. 4 therapists now. A waiting list. Referrals from schools across Manhattan. Children who need someone to tell them they are not broken. They are just growing in a world that does not always make room for them. If you are still listening, let me leave you with this. I was 19 when I walked into that mansion in Greenwich. I thought I was getting a job. I was getting a lesson. A 9-year lesson in what happens when you give everything to people who see you as replaceable. But here's what Diana Harrington never understood. The things that made me a good nanny. The patience, the steadiness, the ability to show up every single day and love children who were not mine. Those things did not disappear when she took my job and my name. They became the foundation of everything I built next. You do not need permission to be valuable. You do not need someone else's approval to know your worth. And you do not need revenge to find justice. Sometimes justice is just the truth told loudly enough for everyone to hear. My name is Sophie Brennan. I am 32 years old. I am a licensed child psychologist. I raised 3 children who were not mine, and I would do it again. Every bedtime story, every nightmare, every whispered Mama Sophie in the dark. Because love is not transactional. Love does not come with conditions or contracts or promises written on paper that nobody intends to keep. Love is showing up, every single day, even when no one pays you for it, even when no one thanks you, even when the people you serve decide you are disposable. You are not disposable. You never were. Thank you for listening to my story. If it meant something to you, share it. Like, subscribe, leave a comment telling me what you would have done. And check the description for more stories like this. 1. Because everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves to be believed. And everyone deserves to know that the truth always finds its way out. Always.